The Annabelle Doll torments and haunts its way through the Conjuring Universe, but what is the true story behind the films? Hi guys, I hope you're doing really well. My name is Sarah and welcome to What the Horror, the channel where we talk about horror movies old and new. Also welcome to a new episode of Truly Horror, the series where we talk about the true stories, the true events and true crime surrounding certain horror movies. The behind the scenes stuff that is often stranger and scarier than the movies themselves. Today we are taking a look at the true story and events that inspired the horrors in films such as Annabelle Creation, Annabelle, The Conjuring and Annabelle Comes Home. We'll be looking at and comparing both dolls, the film version and the real life one, contrasting appearance, the hauntings, the involvement of Ed and Lorraine Warren and the demon entity Malthus. The Annabelle Doll first made her appearance in the Conjuring Universe in The Conjuring back in 2013, but due to James Wan's plan to create an extended world of films that were based around the case files of the real-life Warrens, and the fact that Annabelle was a hit with fans, she went on to have her own standalone film in 2014. A prequel called Annabelle Creation was released in 2017, and a sequel called Annabelle Comes Home in 2019. Annabelle's appearance in the Conjuring movies is that of a porcelain doll with blue eyes, red lips and rosy cheeks. She wears a white silk dress with a red sash and has her straw-coloured hair in plait pigtails tied with matching red ribbons. In the films, the Annabelle doll is disfigured and generally looks menacing even without the haunting aspect. The appearance was changed for the films from the real-life doll because of trademark issues, but also to make the doll seem scarier and more menacing to audiences. In reality, the Annabelle doll is a Raggedy Ann doll, a character created by writer Johnny Gruelle, who appears in a series of children's books. It's a rag doll with red yarn for hair, big black eyes and a red triangle nose. It wears a ditzy floral dress with a white pinafore, white bloomers and stripy stockings underneath, and has the appearance of a simple children's toy. Lorraine Warren told USA Today back in 2019, quote, "Looks can be deceiving. It's not what the doll looks like that makes it scary. It's what has been infused within the doll. Evil," end quote. In the Conjuring Universe, Annabelle's story begins in Annabelle Creation with the Mullins family. Samuel Mullins is a doll maker, and in 1943 he's just completed work on a new range of familiar-looking dolls. Tragically, the Mullins' 7-year-old daughter Bee is killed in a car accident. Distraught at their loss, Samuel and Esther Mullins reach out, trying to contact the spirit of their daughter, and accidentally summon a demon called Malthus, who tricks the couple into allowing it to attach itself to the Annabelle doll. But Malthus wants a human host, and after the Mullins become aware that this is not the spirit of their daughter, but an evil entity, it tries to take Esther Mullins. Samuel Mullins luckily interrupts the demon possessing Esther, and they lock the doll away in a room wallpapered in pages from the Bible and ask a priest to bless the house. 12 years later, the Mullins open their house up to a nun, Sister Charlotte, and 6 orphan girls, including Janice, a young girl disabled by polio. Janice finds the Annabelle doll locked away in Bee's bedroom, and the demon takes a liking to the weak and vulnerable girl, now targeting her as its new host. The Annabelle doll torments the 6 girls and Sister Charlotte. The doll is found in different positions and places around the farm, and when one of the girls, Linda, tries to get rid of the doll down a well, it mysteriously returns to the house. Eventually, the demon breaks Janice down enough to be able to possess her, and once this is done, the demon, once attached to the Annabelle doll, kills Samuel and Esther Mullins and tries to kill Sister Charlotte. Janice and the doll are locked in the Bible-covered room, and the Mullins house sets on fire. The next day, the police find the doll in the locked room, but the possessed Janice managed to escape and makes her way to a new orphanage where she changes her name to Annabelle and is adopted by a couple called Pete and Sharon Higgins. 10 years later, the still possessed Janice, now called Annabelle, leaves her adoptive family to join the cult known as the Disciples of the Ram, but returns 2 years later to kill her parents in a blood sacrifice. The day before this, a man called John Form, who lives next door to the Higgins, presents his pregnant wife Mia with a gift, an Annabelle doll for her collection. After the possessed Annabelle kills her parents, she and her partner enter the Forms' home and try to kill Mia as well. But when they are interrupted by John and the police, the possessed Annabelle takes her own life and seemingly, through the blood ritual, the demon Malthus can reattach itself to the Annabelle doll when a drop of blood falls on the doll's head and enters the eye. Demon Malthus, now reattached to the Annabelle doll, targets the Form family as it wants Mia's soul, eventually offered up in return for the safety of her newborn baby Leah. The demon torments Mia specifically, only targeting her when John isn't around, to make her feel isolated and to break her down. The demon even follows them when they move away. Rookie mistake. The Forms reach out to a priest for help, but this only angers the demon, who hospitalizes Father Perez and takes baby Leah. Mia attempts to jump out of the window with the doll in return for her daughter, but is stopped by John and her friend Evelyn. In an act of atonement, Evelyn then jumps out of the window with the doll, returning Leah to Mia and John. But both the doll and the demon Malthus disappear. 6 months later, a woman looking for a birthday gift for her daughter Debbie buys the Annabelle doll from an antique store. Debbie, a nurse, lives and works with her friend Camilla and Camilla's boyfriend. After receiving the doll as a gift, the trio began to notice strange things happening. They would find the doll with its head, arms or legs in a different position, or just in a completely different room of the apartment. This leads one of the women, Camilla, to contact a medium who told the two nurses that a young 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins had died in the apartment they now live in and was lonely, that she had taken a liking to the doll and just wanted to be friends. Feeling bad for her, the two women gave her permission to possess the doll.
Wait, you did what?
But after this, things only got worse. One day they returned home to find the doll had moved, had written a note in red crayon saying, "Miss me," and had vandalized Debbie's bedroom, drawing with crayon on the walls and ceilings. Freaked out, Debbie throws the doll in the bin outside, but it returns, showing up in a cupboard in the apartment. That's when Debbie and Camilla reach out to Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens explain that this isn't the spirit of a human, as they don't have that kind of power, but is instead a demonic entity, using the doll as a conduit to manipulate the two women. They explain that demons can't possess things, but instead possess people, and the demon's goal was to possess either Debbie or Camilla. The Warrens remove the doll and ask for the church to send a priest to the apartment to bless it and the people living there. In reality, the events depicted in Annabelle Creation and the main storyline of Annabelle never actually happened. However, there is one small element of Annabelle Creation that ties in with the real-life events. Mia and John Form and the Higgins family are all fictional characters, and there was no link between any of the owners to a cult. These were all created to offer audiences a fictional account of how a demon could become attached to the doll. The true events and paranormal activities surrounding the doll are much more closely tied to the events in the opening scene of both The Conjuring and Annabelle. In 1970, a woman bought a Raggedy Ann doll as a birthday gift for her daughter, a young nurse called Donna who was living in Connecticut. Some sources online say that the doll was new and some say that it was an antique, but I have also seen that that particular model of the doll was not released until 1970, so it is far more likely that the doll was new on purchase. There are also differing accounts of where the doll was purchased from, either from a hobby store or from a second-hand store. But again, if we go with the assumption that the doll was new, then it was probably bought from a hobby store. Donna lived in a small apartment with her roommate, a fellow nurse called Angie, and the two women both lived and worked together. It wasn't long after Donna received the doll that small but strange things would happen around the apartment. At first, they would notice the Annabelle doll changing position, only small movements at first, but then they would become more noticeable. For example, they would leave the apartment knowing they had left the doll in one position and would return to find it in a different one, sometimes with its legs and or arms crossed, others with the doll stood upright on its own. Then the doll would start moving around the apartment, with the two women finding it in different places from where they had left it. For instance, Donna would leave it on the sofa and it would appear in her bedroom with the door closed. Like the film version of Annabelle, the real-life doll would apparently write little notes, leaving messages on pieces of parchment paper written in pencil in what appeared to be the handwriting of a child. The notes would vary from "help us" to "help Lou." The Lou the note was referring to was the fiancé of Donna's roommate, Angie. Lou had been staying with them at the apartment since the doll arrived and would also witness the strange events. What baffled the two women about the notes the most, aside from the fact that none of them had written them, was the fact that not one of them owned or used parchment paper like that used for the notes. So where did it come from? The next event to happen would freak Donna out so much that she would reach out to a medium for answers. According to the Warrens, between 4 and 6 weeks after the supernatural activities had begun, Donna returned home one evening to find the doll had moved and was now on her bed. This was at this point nothing surprising to Donna, except this time there was blood on the doll's hands and 3 drops of blood on its back, with no explanation as to how it got there. Donna reached out to a medium and they held a séance, which is when the medium introduced the two women to a spirit called Annabelle Higgins. According to the medium, Annabelle had apparently been a 7-year-old girl who used to play in the fields that the apartment building had been built on. One day, the dead body of the little girl had been found in those fields. This version of the story can be found on the Warrens' website and in the book The Demonologist, written by Gerald Brittle. However, there is a video tour of the Warrens' Occult Museum that was made in 1980, and in it, Ed recounts a different version of the story, one in which the young girl was 6, not 7, and was killed in a car accident outside of Donna and Angie's apartment building, rather than being found in a field that the apartment would later be built on. He also says the doll was given as a Christmas gift and not a birthday gift, so a few little inconsistencies there. Either way, the medium's story of little Annabelle Higgins touched the two women and they gave the supposed spirit permission to possess the doll and stay with them. Angie's fiancé was a little less sympathetic towards the doll and on numerous occasions told Donna that it was evil and it was best to get rid of it. Unlike in the film, however, no attempt was actually made to throw the doll away. One night, Lou awoke in the apartment from a bad dream in a panic. But though awake, he felt unable to move. When he looked around the room, his eyes eventually fell on the Annabelle doll by his feet at the foot of the bed. The doll then slowly began to glide up his legs and over his chest, and then before he knew what was happening, the doll apparently began to strangle him. Lou blacked out and woke the next morning shaken by what had happened, convinced it hadn't been a dream. Now, in an article in The Hollywood Reporter, they claimed that Lou believed it had been a bad dream and had picked up the doll, thrown it across the floor and shouted, quote, "She's nothing more than a Raggedy Ann doll. She can't hurt anybody." End quote. However, this doesn't corroborate with any other account of this event, but does seem almost like for like with another event between a priest and the doll after it was in the Warrens' possession. So I'm inclined to think that this was just a mix-up of stories. Another day, later on, Lou and his fiancée Angie were planning a road trip for the next day and they were looking over road maps in the apartment. They both heard noises coming from Donna's room and seeing as how she wasn't home, Lou went to investigate. The bedroom was empty, but he could see the Annabelle doll discarded on the floor. As Lou walked over to the doll, he got the distinct feeling that someone was standing behind him, but when he spun around to see, there was no one there. Seconds later, Lou doubled over in incredible pain, clutching at his chest. His shirt was now covered in blood, and when he checked, he had 7 claw marks, both vertical and horizontal, on his chest. These claw marks would apparently heal really quickly, having completely disappeared in the next 2 days. Apparently, after this event, Donna finally believed that perhaps this wasn't the spirit of a young girl, but that of an evil entity, and so the trio reached out for help, contacting a priest named Father Hagen. Father Hagen felt that he needed the help of a higher authority, and so he reached out to a Father Cook, who then in turn contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens were apparently instantly interested in the case and spoke to Donna, Angie, and Lou, explaining that spirits of people don't possess objects, they possess people, but an inhuman entity can attach itself to an object. The Warrens believed the entity attached itself to the doll and moved it around in order to get the attention of the women. And once the medium was involved, the entity was able to communicate and play on the sympathies of the nurses. The Warrens asked Father Cook to perform an exorcism on Donna and Angie's apartment, and he also blessed the trio that lived there in order to cleanse the home of evil. Donna also requested that the Warrens take the Annabelle doll away with them, which they agreed to do. In the Conjuring Universe, the Annabelle doll ends up in the hands of clairvoyant and demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren after they confiscate it from its previous owner Debbie and her roommate Camilla. On the drive home, the Warrens' car stops and the couple are approached by multiple spirits who the Annabelle doll has summoned in order to attack Ed. They manage to get the doll back to their home safely to be kept in a locked room of haunted artifacts. They are aided by a priest who blesses the doll, but on believing this will only do so much, they decide a further barrier of protection is needed. So they place Annabelle inside a case made from glass taken from a chapel that closed down. The doll is blessed again, and they place a sign on the front of the door which reads, "Warning, positively do not open." Sometime, round about a year later, Ed and Lorraine Warren leave their daughter in the care of teenage babysitter Mary Ellen when they leave to investigate another case. Judy is a very lonely child, seeing as how other children make fun of her because of what her parents do for a living, and so Mary Ellen likes to make a fuss of her and spend quality time together. The pair are joined in their fun by Mary Ellen's friend Daniela, who has actually come with the hidden agenda of trying to make contact with the spirit of her recently deceased father. In her attempt to make contact, she accidentally releases the spirit of the Annabelle doll, or the demon Malthus, and then in turn, Annabelle releases other demonic entities and spirits that were housed in the same artifact room. The trio are tormented by multiple spirits, including the ferryman, the bride, and the black shuck, which is a ghostly large black dog. By playing the recording of Ed Warren performing an exorcism on the bride, the trio are able to defeat the entities and return all of the artifacts to the artifact room, including Annabelle, locking her in the glass case. The artifact room itself is blessed weekly due to the evil contained within, and as of Annabelle comes home, the Annabelle doll still remains safely locked in its case in the Warrens' artifact room. After Annabelle's real-life owner requested the Warrens take the doll away with them, the Warrens drove Annabelle home to Monroe, Connecticut. Ed had placed the doll in the back seat and decided not to take the interstate in case the evil spirit was still attached to the doll and decided to cause problems. Apparently, on the journey home, the car would swerve, stall, and the steering and brakes would repeatedly fail. Ed splashed holy water on the doll and made the sign of the cross, and after this, the supernatural activity stopped for the rest of the journey. Unlike the film version, the real Annabelle wasn't put into a case straight away. At first, it was seated in a chair in Ed's office and was seen levitating on numerous occasions and would appear in various rooms around the house. And the doll apparently took a disliking to any man of the church who entered the house. There's one example of a Father Jason Bradford, a priest who was known to perform exorcisms, who was visiting the Warrens' home one day and found the Annabelle doll seated in Ed's easy chair. He picked it up, saying to it, quote, "You're just a rag doll, you can't hurt anyone," to which Ed told the priest he had better not say things like that. Lorraine Warren was concerned for Father Bradford's safety and told him to drive home safely, but hours later the Warrens received a call from Father Bradford claiming he had been in a near-fatal accident on his way home. Eventually, the Warrens had a case built for the Annabelle doll to be kept in. The case is different in appearance to the film one, as the real one is made of mostly wood with only a panel of glass on the front door. There is a wooden cross that is nailed to the case above the door, a red light inside, and a tarot card stuck to the front. Like the film though, it does have a sign on the front saying warning, positively do not open. According to Ed Warren, the Annabelle doll was responsible for one person's death while it was in their care. During a video tour of the artifact room or occult museum, Ed pointed out the Annabelle doll and said, quote, "Many of the objects in this room have had dire effects on people. You have the Raggedy Ann doll, which was responsible for the death of a young man who came in here one time who challenged the doll to do its worst, and it did." End quote. The story goes that the young man came with his girlfriend to the museum, but began mocking the doll, tapping on the glass on the case. He apparently knew about the attack on Lou, and he challenged the doll to do the same to him. Then, apparently 3 hours after Ed had kicked the young man out of the museum, he was tragically killed after he lost control of his motorcycle and crashed into a tree. In the Conjuring universe, the root of all the hauntings and supernatural activity surrounding Annabelle the doll is a demonic entity called Malthus. Malthus is a demon who the Mullins accidentally summon when they are trying to reach out to their deceased daughter. Malthus's goal is to find a human host to possess, but in the meantime attaches itself to the porcelain doll known as Annabelle. Malthus is aggressive, vicious, and manipulative. It takes pleasure in tormenting its victims by taking the form of their loved ones, and also violently attacked some of its victims, especially Mrs. Mullins, who has her eye gouged out and then years later ends up ripped in half and nailed to the wall. Malthus's demon form is that of a humanoid creature with black charred skin, long clawed fingers, a goatee, and 2 sets of horns on its head, one set in the shape of a ram's horn. This tie to the ram continues in the link between the demon Malthus and the cult known as the Disciples of the Ram that appear throughout the Conjuring universe. Malthus is a demon mentioned in the 17th century grimoire and spellbook The Lesser Key of Solomon. The book contains information on 72 demons, all who have differing titles, abilities, and symbols. Malthus is the 38th demon who is known by both the names Malthus and Halphus. Unlike in the Conjuring and Annabelle movies, Malthus doesn't have any ties to the ram, but instead takes the form of a stock dove. It has the title of Great Earl, speaks with a hoarse voice, and rules over 26 legions of spirits in hell. Malthus's role or ability is to build towers, furnish them with ammunition, and send men off to war. While the Conjuring film takes a lot of inspiration from The Lesser Key of Solomon, in particular the book named Goetia, which holds all of the information on the demons, in this case there have been numerous creative changes made to the character of Malthus. Unlike with Valak, another Conjuring villain, who is pretty much a like for like with the version in the text. Of course, as with all the Truly Horror episodes based around hauntings and possessions, the true story elements and real-life events depend on your own beliefs and interpretations. The true story sections of this episode are merely taken from documented accounts of what happened from the people involved. You will have to make up your own mind on what you think really happened. Ed and Lorraine Warren have both since passed away, with Lorraine dying last in 2019. The running and ownership of their business and the occult museum was taken over by their daughter Judy Warren and son-in-law Tony Spira. Despite the occult museum closing in 2020, as far as we know, the Annabelle doll is still housed in the Room of Artifacts behind her wood and glass case. Thank you for stopping by for another episode of Truly Horror. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and if you haven't already, then don't forget to click on that subscribe button and join the What the Horror family. And if you love the Conjuring universe, then check out my other episodes on the franchise. I've already done a Truly Horror episode on the 3 Conjuring films, and I will leave a link to them here and in the description box. But in the meantime, thank you as always for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye!